Tropical cyclones are considered some of the most powerful forces of nature. Tropical cyclone regions are broken down by ocean basins. In the Atlantic and Eastern Pacific, they're known as hurricanes. In the Western Pacific, they're known as typhoons. And in the Indian Ocean, they're known as cyclones. Since I live in the US, specifically New Jersey, I call them hurricanes. With that said, the Atlantic hurricane season starts on June 1st and ends on November 30th. The season peaks on or about September 10th when the ocean waters are at their warmest. But one storm which occurred in late October 2012 is an outlier. Hurricane Sandy, also known as Superstorm Sandy, ravaged the mid-Atlantic coast on October 29, 2012. The eye of the massive storm went right over Atlantic City, New Jersey. The impact was extreme, especially for the Jersey Shore. The question is, what made Sandy so intense? In this video, a step-by-step analysis of Hurricane Sandy will be discussed. Since I live in northeastern New Jersey, I have a first-hand account of the aftermath. Not a direct one, like the shore communities had, but indirect effects such as uprooted trees from high winds and multi-day electricity outages. If you'd like to leave a comment about Sandy, please do so below. Let's get started. On October 22, 2012, a tropical wave formed in the western Caribbean. It quickly intensified into a named storm and eventually a Category 1 hurricane named Sandy. It passed over Jamaica as a Category 1 hurricane, then intensified into a Category 2 hurricane. It was heading towards Cuba, and the hours before it made landfall, it reached a Category 3. Cuba's rugged terrain weakened Sandy down to a Category 1 hurricane and eventually a strong tropical storm. After passing through the Bahamas on October 26th, it strengthened back into a Category 1 hurricane. As it was making its way over the warm waters of the Gulf Stream, it slowly intensified. At this time, Sandy also started to make an unusual left turn, which typically doesn't occur with Atlantic hurricanes. This abnormal turn was a result of meteorological conditions at the time. A strong high pressure was stationed over the northeastern United States and Canada, blocking Sandy from heading northeast. Also, a cold front was approaching the coast from the west, and eventually the front combined with Hurricane Sandy, producing a very strong hybrid storm which was named Superstorm Sandy. On the morning of October 29th, Sandy reached a Category 2 intensity again, but by the evening the storm started to lose its tropical characteristics. At around 9 p.m. that night, Sandy made landfall just north of Atlantic City in Brigantine, New Jersey, as a strong extratropical cyclone with sustained winds of 80 miles an hour and a barometric pressure of only 938 millibars, unusually low for such a storm. During the next several hours, coastal places located north of Atlantic City recorded very high storm surges, which destroyed boardwalks and homes. Part of the famous Atlantic City boardwalk was destroyed, and the Seaside Heights, New Jersey boardwalk was severely damaged. Unfortunately, the storm surge in these areas resulted in 38 total fatalities in New Jersey. In New York City, storm surge inundated lower Manhattan, and because of this, that area of the city lost power. Elsewhere in New Jersey, 2.7 million people lost power. Although winds were a cause, another major cause was that some low-lying power substations were flooded by storm surge, resulting in them malfunctioning. With that said, power outages were long-lasting, with some people not having power for 2 to 3 weeks. Power and transportation disruptions resulted in gasoline shortages, creating long lines at gas stations. Gasoline had to be odd-evens rations in New Jersey until mid-November. Meteorological conditions in inland states were downright bizarre. In the mountains of North Carolina, Tennessee, Maryland, West Virginia, and Virginia, heavy snow fell, with some areas receiving feet. This is definitely not typical of storms that are derived in the tropics, especially during hurricane season. States of emergencies were issued for many states on the eastern seaboard, which allowed federal funds to help with the impacts. In time, Superstorm Sandy went inland and was absorbed by a cold front. But the damages were catastrophic, especially for coastal locations in New Jersey and New York. In New York City, Breezy Point, Queens sustained a major storm surge, and, to make matters worse, a 6-alarm fire broke out, destroying 130 homes and damaging another 50. By mid-November, virtually everyone had their power back, and things were back to normal in the inland locations. However, communities all along the Jersey Shore and Long Island had severe damage from storm surge, and the cleanup was set to be very costly. This would likely take months, if not years. The question is, why was Sandy such a devastating storm? Is it a type of storm that areas not prone to frequent hurricanes like the Northeast will see more often? Is it from climate change? And most of all, is the most densely populated region in the U.S. prepared for future storms that may be as intense, if not more? First, let's talk about the meteorological irregularities of Sandy. Like what was mentioned before, North Atlantic hurricanes usually follow a path which brings them to the right. This has to do with a natural phenomenon called the Coriolis effect. The Coriolis effect is the deflection of large-scale moving objects in both the northern and the southern hemisphere. It takes into account the rotation of the Earth and the inertia of a moving object, in this case, a hurricane. In the northern hemisphere, objects tend to be deflected to the right, while in the southern hemisphere, objects are deflected to the left. Since many Atlantic hurricanes form in the far eastern Atlantic, they turn out to sea before they hit land. But ones that form closer to the western hemispheric continents sometimes turn too late and then affect areas such as the Caribbean, Gulf Coast, the state of Florida, and the southeastern coast of the U.S. For example, in 2011, a year before Sandy, Hurricane Irene took a typical hurricane track. It originated east of the Lesser Antilles and then started to deflect west-northwest, then eventually northwest to north, and eventually northeast. Irene scraped the east coast and did create flooding rains all the way up, but the track was way more typical of a hurricane. Sandy wasn't and made a left turn. But was this left turn a sudden surprise? Not really. A week before, the European forecast model predicted that Sandy would track north and then make a left turn into New Jersey. All other forecast models, including the well-respected American GFS model, predicted Sandy would head out to sea. A couple of days before, the National Hurricane Center confirmed the left turn track and issued a tropical storm and hurricane watches for the New York metro area. A year later, the GFS model received a crucial update which greatly improved its forecasting capabilities. Some scientists believe climate change may have something to do with Sandy-type storms, and to an extent, it can be linked to it. However, one event like Sandy can't be directly connected to climate change. Overall, climate change is long-term and has to be correlated to a series of events. But if climate change is a cause, this is concerning because ocean water temperatures will become warmer, and warm water is basically gasoline for hurricanes. Personally, I believe there have been some more extreme weather events here in New Jersey during my lifetime. Every summer, flooding thunderstorms create flash floods that damage certain communities. However, I also connect this to the infrastructure maintaining it, which comes to my next point. The New York-New Jersey area is one of the oldest settlements in the United States. This in turn comes with infrastructure that is antiquated. Many of the highways within the most urbanized areas in New York City and New Jersey date to the 1920s, and many haven't been updated to 21st century standards. Of course, when flooding rains or storm surge occur, these areas will be submerged. And if that happens over and over and over again, what's being done to remedy the problem? Well, in terms of large projects, nothing too much. After Hurricane Sandy, there was a bureaucratic talk about creating multi-million-dollar flood control systems for both New York City and New Jersey, one that are currently implemented in the Netherlands and Great Britain. However, nothing has ever been built as of 2023. Hong Kong is a city known for its high rainfall amounts and is susceptible to typhoons. Before the 21st century, the city used to flood frequently, but in the last 2 decades, the city has built flood control systems equipped with massive tunnels beneath the city to drain water out into the ocean. If a city such as New York were to invest in a similar project, flooding risk would be cut down massively. Another solution that has been done to an extent is the lifting of coastal homes. Before, many homes on the Barrow Islands were low-lying and extremely susceptible to storm surge. Since then, though, hundreds of homes have been lifted to protect from future storm surges. Another thing that has been somewhat revitalized is the power grid. PSE&G, one of the largest power and gas suppliers in New Jersey, and now Long Island, spent $4.8 billion to upgrade power substations and replace over 2,000 miles of aging gas lines. This should ensure that customers of PSE&G will never see a power outage on the magnitude of Sandy's. The Earth is a changing system, and natural and man-made changes are happening climatically. There are steps that humans can take to slow down the change, but I believe that is something that's inevitable. Therefore, we must adapt to change. This can be done by investing in projects that protect coastal communities. It is likely that the east coast of the U.S. will see more hurricane risk, including in the Northeast. 53% of the U.S. population lives within 50 miles of the coastline, equaling around 178 million people. Thus, projects similar to Hong Kong's flood control system are needed. But with record federal deficits and pinched state budgets, we may never see them be built. What do you think? If you'd like to chime in, please leave a comment below. Thank you for watching this video on my channel, Our World, Our Planet, Our Home. Until next time!